125 years ago, Theodor Herzl failed in his effort to convince the ultra-Orthodox leadership to join the Zionist movement. 50 years later, they supported the establishment of the State of Israel, but besides that, they decided to isolate themselves from the modern Israeli state. They isolated themselves by separate neighborhood, towns, cities today. They isolate themselves by a separate education system, separate political parties, separate media, in order not to be secular, in order to focus in their strictly religious life. But this situation made a lot of challenges to the Israeli state 50 years later. First of all, a challenge to our economy, the fact that especially ultra-Orthodox men doesn't work or their production is very low, affecting the whole state of Israel. It affects social rifts, especially between secular and ultra-Orthodox, and high tension between the communities. It affects democracy. According to poll, most of the ultra-Orthodox doesn't believe in full democracy, full equal rights, for example, to the Arab-Israeli sector. It affects equality, especially regarding the question of service in the army, as we all know. And also, because of the rapid growth, it affects the need of building houses, towns, hospitals, schools, etc. A great effect on the Israeli state. A lot of policymakers at the last 20 years tried to make a change, to break this isolation and to make a process of integration. But how do you do an integration process with a community that doesn't want to integrate? They want to isolate themselves. You build a spatial, isolated framework in order to integrate them in the general society. How do you do it? And you do it. The state did it in the army, spatial framework units in the army, in the higher education, spatial campuses for ultra-Orthodox, in the labor market, for example, spatial advice centers or vocational training for ultra-Orthodox. And the point is, if you want to integrate, build spatial framework that they will study or will serve by themselves, and then they will have more ability to integrate. Of course, you need to support it economically, structurally, to give these incentives, and not to use the media in order not to make tension with the spiritual leadership. So 20 years later, let's see one aspect, the economy aspect. Let's check it out. Was it a successful process? If we refer to ultra-Orthodox women, it is quite a successful process. You can see on the purple line the jump from 2003 to 2021. It's quite a rare success, a great jump in their participation, at least participation in the labor market, and not referring to their earning, lower earning, but a great jump. Regarding the ultra-Orthodox men, the results are more complicated. On one hand, you can see that the 15 years between 2003 to 2015, there was a jump. But in the last 6 years, we see a stability in their participation rate. 50% are participating, 50% are studying Torah, religious studies, for a lot of years. This fact, this stability, will affect the economy of Israel much more than it affected now, because in 30 years, in 2050, the current situation is that the ultra-Orthodox society is 12–13% of the Israeli society. But in 30 years, they're going to be 1/4 of the Israeli society. So the same share, the same participation in the labor market will affect our economy much more than now. So if we are looking ahead, 30 years ahead, let's see 3 optional scenarios regarding the development or the integration process of the ultra-Orthodox society and its consequences. The first scenario is the continuation of the process which I told you of the stability in the participation of the ultra-Orthodox men in the labor market, the continuation of society of learners, meaning a youngster who are continuing to studying Torah a lot of years, and the meaning of this situation to the economy of the state of Israel, it will be unsustainable, this process, because as I told you, if it's 12% of the society, it's harming the economy. If it's 25%, it's horrible. But there is another option. The second scenario is that the ultra-Orthodox society, as they made it in the last 20 years, will be more integrated, and there is an existing model for that. The ultra-Orthodox society in the United States are much more integrated regarding secular studies, regarding participation in the labor market. So maybe this process that we saw, they are more participating now than in 20 years ago, it will continue, and they will fully adopt the ultra-Orthodox American model. But I can tell you that even the ultra-Orthodox American model, although they are participating in the labor market, they are not earning like the median, the average salaries in the United States. So even if the ultra-Orthodox society will adopt this model, it doesn't mean that it will include fully secular studies, fully higher education, and of course high job salaries and things like that. So its effect on the economy, it will have just limited impact, and it's still a great challenge. There is also scenario C, a situation that some changes connected to technological changes, connected to weakness regarding its leadership, and other changes within the community, which might cause, if we saw some changes in the last 20 years, the changes that will take place at the next 30 years might be much more quick, much more dramatic, and the Haredi society will be much more modern than today, and even there is a chance that more people will leave the community. Of course, the result regarding the economy of this fully integration process will be prosperity to the state of Israel. If I want to summarize, I will say that the best way to continue this integration process is to look at it as a pyramid of, let's say, 3 floors. The first floor related to functional integration. This is the basics. This is the level that, as a state, we can't compromise. I refer to secular studies in school. I refer to full participation in the labor market. And when I'm saying that, I mean that when I say that we can't compromise, I mean that the state can support a system that doesn't include these things, that doesn't include secular studies, that doesn't include full integration in the labor market. This is the basic level. But above that, we have the level of how to do it. And in this case, I can say that we need, as a state, to be multicultural state, meaning that the state needs to give to the ultra-Orthodox society the best ways how to do it, the best way to do it in their own way, to do cultural adaptation. And for example, there's a current initiative in the education system to support the system. If you get your achievement, if you succeed in tests, in exams, you will get the support from the state. This is a great example, a great initiative. So this is the way how to do it. And if you build the first floor, the functional integration, but you can fully do the cultural adaptation, we will have the place, the religious debates, the cultural debates, but economically, the state of Israel will thrive. And I can say that if 125 years ago, when Herzl failed in convincing the ultra-Orthodox leaders to join the Zionist movement, the fact that they didn't join didn't affect the Zionist movement. We succeeded, the state of Israel established, and we are thriving. But if we're looking ahead for 30 years, for 50 years, the right process of integration, of integrating the ultra-Orthodox society in the state of Israel is crucial for the success of our state Israel. Thank you very much.